Is this thing on? Oh, it's on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Nuts and Bolts. I'm Matt Middlebrooke, and glad to be along with you today. It's a nice day outside here in Wisconsin, Milwaukee to be more specific. That's where we're coming to you from. This is the radio studio here at Souls Harbor Baptist Church. And Nuts and Bolts really is it's a variety program, and it's not about cars necessarily. It's not about trucks. Sometimes that comes up, but it's not the reason behind the title. Nuts and Bolts, it's sort of like a potpourri, except I'm a guy, and potpourri is sounds wimpy. So we aren't going to call this the potpourri hour or anything like that. This is Nuts and Bolts. So variety of thoughts going on. There's a lot of things going on, isn't there? But first of all, also, by the way, this is a program that it goes against all. It honors all the faux pas of conversations, because you don't talk about politics, religion, or the weather in a conversation. You don't want to do that necessarily all the time, but here we might talk about all three at the in actually 30 minutes. So I learned something, but one thing I found out that it's maybe not good to, it's good to take a shower, but sometimes when you take a shower, afterwards you're like, now I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. But I needed one. I was working today at work, and then I came home and put an alternator in our car, and then a friend of ours needed a line patched up on their power steering system, so they came over and I got that finished up for them. So I was dirty, and I thought, I better take a shower. But now I feel tired. But anyway, I am here all the way until 5:30. And so anyway, a lot of things going on this week. The big talk of the town is the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a longtime Supreme Court justice. She was appointed in 1993, and she died at the age of 87 from cancer. And our condolences to the family. And some people might think, they weren't. Mrs. Ginsburg was not maybe say the same stripe or thought, but she is a person. And the passing of anybody is a sad thing. Sometimes, though, people have become so. There are some people out there that you would be glad they're gone. Terrorists, for one thing. But, we need to pause and at least give respect for a lady that served on the Supreme Court bench. Yeah, her decisions may not have been the ones that you wanted or we wanted, but it is good to sometimes pause and realize that life is brief in a lot of ways. She lived a full life for sure. And, I was reading today, Anthony Scalia's son, and by the way, the late Anthony Scalia, he was a justice as well, died actually, back in 2016 in February. But he tweeted out some things today about how his father had a great friendship with Justice Ginsburg as well. They didn't let their ideas, their viewpoints of life affect their friendship. They had opposite views of life. Justice Scalia was hard, constitutionalist. His opinions were really well written, and they were poignant. But apparently they got along very well. And there are actually stories of him whispering jokes to her on the bench, and she was trying to pinch herself not to laugh during oral arguments. So, so it's kind of, I think it serves as an example that we can get along with people, and as long as we can kind of maybe get over some of the maybe our differences in life, and so maybe we can't, there are obvious lines to draw, but just last week I was talking with Pastor Hoover here at the church, and we were talking about how sometimes even within Christianity we have little fractured groups, even within the same, not the same body, say like a church body, that can happen. But you know, there are some we're Souls Harbor Baptist Church here, we call ourselves Independent Fundamental Baptist. And so, but even within the Independent Fundamental Baptist circle are our little circles of people that have certain ideas, and sometimes they think their ideas are so great that the other people, that they shun other people that are within their own group. And there again, we have to be careful. We have to be wise. There are some things that people, and they call themselves fundamental Baptists, that believe things that are truly heretical. So there are people that we have to stay away from. And so, but there are sometimes, there are people that are great Christians that believe that the rapture will happen in the middle of the tribulation period time. And of course, we mainly believe that Jesus will come again before the tribulation period, but we have those differences. But people, they're still saved, they believe in Jesus Christ. But on that issue, there's some differences, and sometimes it gets to be so hot about it, we get so hot about it that we part ways. And I think that sometimes we need to put away some of those little things, because it truly is more of a little thing than a big thing.
Learn to agree to disagree.
Yeah, learn to agree to disagree. And then just agree on what is important. In the area of Christianity, what's important is that Jesus is God, and that he died, and that he's the only sacrifice that was worthy to take away all of our sin, to wash it away. And that believing on him and his name, you may be saved from your sin. And I hope that you are saved from your sin. If you're not, today is the day that you need to seek out the Lord through his word or through a church body of some sort in your town. And if you don't know much about who Jesus is, then get to know him. And everybody who's tried to go out and prove Jesus wrong ends up realizing that they are wrong. A lot of times that happens. I don't know if it's all the time, but there's some notable people out there. And so, it's so important that we don't get ourselves all separated over issues that, are not all that much. If you like green carpet and I like red carpet, we can all get along together, that kind of thing. So anyway, just some thoughts there along those lines. I don't know much about Justice Ginsburg, except I knew she was on the Supreme Court for a long time. And so I'm not going to speak more about her, because it's important not to go too far into a subject if you don't know much about it. Because if you sit there and speculate, you might end up saying things that are not correct. And in this type of situation where I'm at now, talking here to you through a microphone, and you might be watching me or listening to me, I want to be able to provide information or talk about things that I know to be true. So I was thinking along those lines too today about that. There's a lot of things that happen today in journalism. Actually, I was thinking about it as I was sweeping the garage up, cleaning up, and I was thinking about how we have lost the fourth estate. And I was thinking about along the lines of the Supreme Court and our three branches of government, the estate, as it were, the three branches, the three estates. You have the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. And then what was often called the fourth estate was the press. And that's, and the founding fathers, they believed in a free press. And why did they like that? I think, as I look back, I think about it, when journalism was truly journalism, then they helped keep, especially government, accountable, because they were reporting what was going on in the government. After all, you and I can't go and sit in the Capitol, wings in the peanut galleries there at there in Washington D.C. and listen and sit there and watch all of our representatives debate and pass bills and do whatever they do on a day-to-day basis. So, as part of being able to keep everybody informed, we had journalists that would go in and report the facts, just the facts, ma'am. And that was the norm for quite some time. But as time has gone on in our country, more and more we find journalists are becoming now, just like what I'm doing, giving their own opinion along with maybe some of the facts and trying to slant the news in their direction. Now, slanting news has been happening for forever. As long as you've had printing presses or any way of being able to disseminate information, there has been misinformation and disinformation and dat information. Anyways. But along those lines, so the Fourth Estate was there to kind of keep the branches in government kind of accountable, because now, hey, we're telling the public what's going on, and so watch yourself, and so that was what they were supposed to be doing. Now we're seeing a lot more of where the press just wants to slant the news in one direction to benefit one particular set of people, group of people. And so they're not reporting the news in a fair manner. They're overlooking some things. Like if it doesn't agree, if the person hears something and they don't agree with it, then they might not publish it. When it should be, whether I agree with it or not, if it's newsworthy, then we should tell the public about it, whether or not I think that it's worthy. See, that's the difference. So that's bias getting in the way of properly reporting the news. Now, why am I going on about this? I don't know. I'm going on about this because I think about it, and these are the thoughts that go through my head. And so I'm sharing it because sometimes we can get ourselves kind of mixed up in all of this. Social media is a great place for three things to occur. I have these things written down. Disinformation, I'll kind of talk about a little bit about that. Yellow journalism and misinformation. Now, misinformation and disinformation are basically almost peas in the pod. But disinformation actually was a word that came about during the Cold War. And for those that are not as old as I am, and I grew up right toward the end of the Cold War. The Cold War was between the United States and mainly Russia. And it was called the Cold War because really we weren't firing shots at one another, like, actual ammunition, but we were firing rhetorical shots. We were talking back and forth. And anyways, the KGB was out there trying to, they would put out information that was purposely false. And it's sort of like it goes along with propaganda, but it's not quite propaganda. And so there was a word, it was a Russian word, and it kind of had this dis sound in it, or had dis at the beginning of it. So we took it on as disinformation. It's purposely false. And a good example of disinformation recently was probably the article or column written in The Atlantic that talked about President Trump, putting down the military and calling them losers and all these things that were untrue. And all the sources that were around the president at the time of the supposed event said he never said any of the things that were said in that article. Well, that was purposely put out to try to obviously hurt the character of the president. It's disinformation. It's purposely put out there. There's a lot of that going around. It goes around on Facebook. It goes around everywhere. It's deliberate. Now, misinformation, not Mr. Information, but misinformation, is false or inaccurate information, but it may or may not have been intentional. That's the thing. Sometimes we can get facts wrong. That's misinformation. You're misinformed. You might get yourself mixed up. And so you'll put out information, but you're not intending it to be actually falsified and leading people in the wrong direction. And so that happens a lot as well, because we don't take time to look at all the different variables going on and whatnot. What are you doing over there? You ordering pizza?
No.
Oh, okay. Just wondering. My producer is helping me along the way. Love you, honey. By the way, tomorrow is Wife Appreciation Day. I'm gonna make sure I don't do anything to lose that. But anyway, so yeah, so misinformation may or may not be purposely false.
Tomorrow?
It's Wife Appreciation Day tomorrow.
I thought that's every day.
Oh, it's every day. Oh man, I'm in trouble. But anyway, okay. Well, at least I'll get one day out of the year right. Okay. But so yeah, so may or may not. So that's misinformation. It's false, but maybe it wasn't intentionally put out. Before disinformation came walking along, misinformation was kind of the definition used for deliberate and for false information being just put out. But it's sort of now, since dis has come in, mis has sort of, taken both routes, the ignorant route and the intentional route. But anyway, now yellow journalism. Now this is a deeper subject that I'm not going to really dive into much because I don't have time. And basically, yellow journalism is sensationalism. The facts may be there, but we kind of tweak it to make it sound bigger than it really was. There was a huge explosion in Lake Michigan. What happened? Well, a guy in a rowboat had fireworks in the rowboat and it blew up. But he had like 5 fireworks in there. Well, that wasn't a big explosion. That was a small explosion. Well, it seemed big to me. That sort of thing. There was the common usage of when it bleeds, it leads. So yellow journalism was given a spotlight in the late 1800s with the 2 big newspaper dudes in New York City. We had Joseph Pulitzer and William Hearst, and they both owned papers there in New York City, and they were trying to drive up circulation. So they started getting real crazy with their headlines, and then they were trying to find stories that maybe were they were partially factually right, but maybe there was a little bit of embellishment going on. But they were trying to get bigger circulation numbers going. So they had this war, not really a war, but they were, who can give you the biggest, biggest headline. And so they were bold headlines, and they were taking facts and just stretching them a little bit, maybe a lot. What do we have today that kind of reflects that? Well, we know them as tabloids. In fact, I looked up some examples of yellow journalism here. I thought you might find this interesting. For instance, this site here that I looked at just for some examples. Let's see here. Yellow journalism and tabloid headlines. Titanic survivors found on board. There's no fact in that. How about this? Hubby's bad breath kills his wife. Let's see. Man's 174 mile per hour sneeze blows wife's hair off. Teen's hair changes color with her mood. Chain smoker kicks 30-year habit, then chokes to death on a wad of nicotine gum. Yeah, so man gives birth to a healthy baby boy. That kind of thing. Abraham Lincoln was a woman. Jesus action figure heals the sick. Move over, Benny Hinn. There's a new action figure on the scene. Yeah, so is your cat from Mars? Those are obviously fictionalized stories probably that were within those tabloid things. But it's meant to catch your eye. It's meant to maybe get you to pick up the magazine, to buy it, to look at it. And that's sort of along the lines of yellow journalism. There's a lot more history in yellow journalism than what I just gave you there, but I thought you might find that interesting. When we as Christians, though, we need to live in the truth, and that's kind of like what I was thinking about a lot. Sometimes when I pray, I ask God that truth would prevail, especially with our elections coming up, that truth would prevail, that lying people that are out there trying to get more vote, create falsified votes, which is a big possibility. There's no sensationalism in that. It's real, and by the way, they like to actually tell you they're going to do it before they do it. I don't know what it is about that, but there's been a lot of chit chat about how can we make mail-in voting to be fraudulent, and so, but as Christians, we live in the truth, and we need to speak the truth. The Bible says, "Speak the truth in love." The truth of God's word to people, because the word, Jesus said, our message is going to be offensive to people. Why? Because it makes people look at themselves and their sin, and to come to a realization that they need a Savior. In regards to our practical life, He wants us to live in the truth. He wants us to be truthful with one another. The Bible talks about it in Ephesians chapter 4. Talks about stop lying to each other. I'm just paraphrasing. It's in Ephesians chapter 4. Quit lying. That's what Paul was telling the Ephesians out there. Stop that lying, and speak truth to your neighbor. Don't slander. Don't be kind. rather than slander, be kind one to another. And so we need to be careful when we hear information on the radio, when we read things on the internet. I know it's true. I saw it on the internet. But when you read, you see things on Facebook, and you see that people can believe things and they cannot be true, or you don't know all the facts. I see people posting things about the incident that occurred here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And the perpetrator, really, that was the guy that was shot, and he didn't die. There was information out that he died, but that wasn't true. But we're glorifying him, though the reason that the police were even after him at all was because he had warrants out. He was a bad man. Yet now he's an angel because he got shot in the back by the police. That fact doesn't nullify the fact that he is a criminal. We have to be careful. But I have seen Christian friends posting things of just randomly sharing pictures and other things, giving out information that isn't correct or isn't fully correct. Is not giving you the full picture. That's another thing. We can alter the truth to make people see it's truthful, but they don't see the whole truth. And again, that's deceptive. And so, excuse me, forgive me there. So let's be careful not to get ourselves sucked into sensationalism or being sensational ourselves. Boy, you won't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. You would say something about, I saw so-and-so and he was doing this. Well, or I read this about, you can cure COVID if you go outside and open your mailbox 3 times, and then you touch your nose twice, and you say hi to your neighbor, then you're cured of COVID. There's everything under the sun out there that's not true. We need to be careful on what we say to other people, so that we don't mislead others, and we don't maybe help perpetrate really what's a false narrative out there. So let's be careful. Know your sources. Don't be afraid to tell people about things you've heard about, but maybe say, hey, this sounds really crazy, and I haven't really checked it out by myself, but it isn't bad sometimes to talk about things that might be overblown, and maybe together with somebody else you can learn to find out what the true facts are. Hey, Brother Richard. Brother Richard's walking by the window. It's good to have him around. Good man. Oh. And he's a hard-working guy. He really is. But anyway, so yeah, let's be careful about that. Let's be careful about that. Let's see here. Well, let's see. I'm looking over my notes. I was telling them, you find out tomorrow is Wife Appreciation Day. Also, tomorrow, along with that, I think is even like Husband Appreciation Day because it's National Pepperoni Pizza Day tomorrow. And so we have the best of both worlds, pepperoni pizza and appreciating our wives. Whew, I like that. All right, today, if you're in case we have some hours left in the day, so for those that are into butterscotch pudding, today is your day. All right, today is your day. I know. Well, actually, I kind of like butterscotch pudding. I haven't had it in a long while, but just the Jell-O brand thing, the little powder, the milk. I'm okay with that. I don't want any tonight, though, honey. That's all right. But also, it's Talk Like a Pirate Day. I thought about opening the program Talking Like a Pirate, but then I couldn't muster up the courage to do that. Arr, matey, welcome today to Nuts and Bolts. Yeah, but it's Talk Like a Pirate Day, okay? Just so if you want to talk like a pirate, all you kids out there, you can talk like a pirate. Today is your day, if you're liking that. Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
Said great food for the days we're living in, and she said don't tell Pastor about the pizza.
Oh, don't tell Pastor about the pizza. Well, if he's watching, then it's too late. Anyway, but yeah, so Talk Like a Pirate Day. And so that's the national days today. And, another thing is we close up shop. And because tomorrow is Sunday, and tomorrow we have Sunday school here at 9:30. And I've been reading through the chapter, the passage that we're going to be studying tomorrow in our Sunday school classes in John. And I don't know if it's really, this isn't the main key, so I don't think I'm giving anything away for those that might be in my class or in Pastor's class, or I guess Mrs. Hoover's class. But I was reading through the passage, and one thing that I noticed in this passage in John chapter 1, and look at that, I forgot my Bible. Man, that's all right. I can remember. But if you go through the last part of John chapter 1, or 2, it's John 2. No, it's not. Now I got to find out. Honey, can you grab a Bible for me? I need to tread water on this one. Hannah?
I'm looking up my Bible app.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Very good. All right. Thank you. We do things on the fly here, all right? This wasn't planned, per se. I was thinking about it, actually. It's in my little note here. No, this note. No, this note's all done. This note right here. And I have in my little thing here, look at people. And it was something that I picked up on as I was reading through John chapter, I think it's chapter 2. I think it's going to be John chapter 1. It's toward the end where Jesus is calling his disciples. And he didn't call his disciples on the phone. He had to go out and find them. Yes, that's the one. Is that John 1 still?
Yes.
Okay, good. John 1. Okay. So I got like a minute and a half to kind of talk about this. All right. So in there, I noticed that it says there's a few spots where Jesus says he beheld Peter and he beheld, I believe, Nathaniel. Or Nathan. Was it Nathan? Nathaniel. And I was just struck by that. Jesus was beheld. He looked at them. He looked at them. I think I've noticed a lot lately that people, and I tend to do it too sometimes, but I try not to. People tend to look away when they're talking to somebody else. And they don't actually take them in. I do this on service calls. When I go out on my service calls and I'm on the side of the road, I'm zoned in. I'm zoned to get the guy fixed and rolling down the road. That's my job. But sometimes you got to take a few seconds to behold the person you're helping. I sometimes don't until I look up at the very end. I realize, oh, there's a person there, almost in some respects. And Jesus took the time to actually look at people. Look at them. Now, don't look at them weirdly, but sometimes we just need to stop and behold the people that that are in front of us. In the city here, people tend not to look. They look down and away, and so it's one thing out of many things in that little passage. But I thought Jesus beheld those that he was calling to discipleship, and so I think we should do the same thing. That we should look and actually understand. Talking. You can talk with your face. There's all that nonverbal communication, but you can't know the nonverbal communication until you actually look at that person and those folks around you as you're talking to them, or as you're just sitting in your church service tomorrow. Well, look around, and maybe reach out to someone that may look sad, or they don't have to look sad. Just reach out to people. All right, I need to do that too. Sometimes I can get stuck in my little terrarium. So, anyways. Just a quick, that's it for the day today. I'm glad you stuck along with me here on Nuts and Bolts. My name is Matthew Middlebrooke, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and maybe you can consider some of these thoughts this evening and throughout the next week. Thanks again. We'll talk to you later.